Is this a popular passage in our world? Has it been for generations? It's a time to be born, a time to die. I hear people in the world, senators who are going to be stepping down from the leadership in the Senate. I go back to the Turtles when they sang that one. I remember them. And they made it popular. And if they're not the Turtles, you tell me who it was. But I always thought it was the Turtles. And I remember when I heard the songs. I have a place in my mind where I'm driving down the road going to play golf, that sort of thing. But it's from the Bible. And it's one of those passages from the Bible that men in the secular world, if they have any concept of the Bible and they look at their lives and maybe have some understanding about God, they go to this passage. It's a passage perfect for a funeral, isn't it? Time to be what? Born. Time to die. And God has made everything beautiful in its time. So we observe that, and we're now going to look at it in its context and try to derive what's the wisdom from that. Because there's a lot of antithetical things. And we have to read carefully. It's not casting down stones, but it's casting them away, and then it's a time to gather them. He's not just tearing down stones like the temple. Sometimes my mind goes there because that's where it is a lot of times in study of Scripture. The temple came down, the rocks came down, and you could cast down stones. So it's an idea of gathering stones and casting away stones. Get into the thought pattern and don't assume, well, I already know what that is, and I just read over it. I read over it again and say, whoa, that's a different concept. It's time to gather them. You spread them out, you cast them away, and then you gather them. So, I still wanted them as the hedge of my garden and so forth. So there's a time for that. There's a time for each one of those. So we begin with our questions of what is the divine purpose for taking you on that journey? Verse 5, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather them, time to embrace, a time to refrain from bracing. And so a time to rend, a time to sow, and then it's a time to love, and it's a time to hate. We're never supposed to hate when we follow God. We're to abhor evil. The psalmist will talk about hate the evildoer because of their actions. So all those things are that, but there's also a time for peace. So war, peace, love, hate. Antithetical things, I think we'd agree on that. Complete opposite. And there's a reason for that. And we ask the question, what is that divine purpose? If you were just to read this passage, what would you think? I know what the purpose is, and you could tell me why. What is it? Or what it is? Maybe verse 9? Does that follow verse 8? He stops doing those, said, what profit hath he that worketh and wherein he laboreth? Question. And so he said, well, what profit? Why did he use antithetical things? It's the complete opposite. I got life. I don't have it anymore. I'm planning. No, I'm plucking it up. I'm not just planning some more. I'm plucking it up. Antithetical things, and you ask the question, well, that's the question God asked us. And you can go all over the world and think about, I'll just pick this and I'll pick that. But I want us to, this morning, to say, God, why did you say that? And he answered it with a question. And it is, what profit? I don't have any profit. I do this and do this, do this, do this, do this. And I didn't gain anything. A hamster does a lot of running in the cage. Does he get anywhere? No. He just running, he doing this and doing that. He's not gaining anything. And we can see that from nature and realize this is that. No, I'm on the treadmill. I went 3.5 miles. Well, you didn't get out of the room. What profit is that? Well, there's some profit to that. You can answer that. And he gives you an answer to what the profit will be. But he asks you to think about that, because that's life. It's all facets of your life, your love, your hate, things that happen around you. You may not control that. Nations go to war and then they have peace. And you had nothing to do with either one of them. But you had to fight in that war. You're longing for peace. You wanted peace, and now the president sends you out to war again, or the leaders. And so I think when you consider all of those things, you realize they're antithetical. What is the purpose of that? I think that would be the first place I would go. And if I need to go somewhere else, tell me. We can look at those different examples, and we plant that tree, and maybe the people put what people call an ash tree out there, and that's a trash tree. Ash, trash. They say that. I liked it as long as it lived, but they die. They get disease. You want something more permanent in your yard. So what do you get? What did you put out there? Live oak. You like those now? I don't like my neighbors. And he doesn't like to have to cut those limbs off because they're getting on my roof. And they have all their issues about that. But I never see them cutting that down as soon as they're going to be cutting down like a fruitless mulberry, that sort of thing. So we experience those things in life and realize when it's all said and done, we cut them down, or a fire burns it all out in West Texas. All these things can happen to us. And I just think, do you grasp the thing? There is no profit. So what do I get out of life? Can you see why it's vanity? It's vain. I don't like this, but that's the way it is. And I don't think anybody that's ever said, no, this is disproven. Whether you're farming, whether you're warring and loving and peace and all those things, it hits all the facets of our life. And we really don't have any gain because we're born, and we're born to die, aren't we? And we realize that happened. Has that been changing any? We get old and we die. And our leaders get old and they die. Whether it's country, church, whatever, whatever organization, or the people in your family. And you can remember your aunts and uncles when they were young, and now you remember them when they're old and dying. And you realize, hey, I'm going that route too. And you are too. So we need to realize, what can I gain out of this, God? That's the way it is. Is there something I can gain from that? And realize, no, when I just look at that, there's no profit in what I'm doing, because that's being the reality of my life. Now, question number 2. He hath made everything what? Talk about God. He's made everything what? All right, I'm going down to, I got verse 10. I've seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised that with. What is it? I don't have any profit. If I have profit from money, I leave it behind. We've already covered that in the second chapter. That's why he's hating life. He may go to someone that wasn't skilled as I was. It may be a fool. All those things are building up, and it says, he hath made everything beautiful in its time. That's what he has done. So it has a time to be born. It has a time to die. A time to embrace. There's a time to not embrace. Time to hate, time to love. And it has its own beauty, it has its own season that said that's appropriate. When evil is coming in and false teaching is coming in, I hate the false teacher. I do, because of his teaching, not because he's made in this image of God. Because the Bible also speaks about I hate them. And we don't do that in our culture. But it has a context. I hate their sins. I don't hate the person. Well, I'm not supposed to hate the person, but I hate the one that's teaching that. And we have to sometimes call their names so people can be aware of who that man is or who that person is. And we see that in the Bible. So I've taken all of what God says, and I want to put it in its context, and to realize that there's a time for that. I need to abhor evil, and I abhor the one that's bringing it. But there's a time to love, seek the well-being of others. I do that for my enemies. Well, that's time for that. And maybe they don't like me, but I see them, they have a need. I need to be extending a helping hand. So there is a thing that's beautiful in its own time. And beauty in the Bible speaks about purity and holiness and the grandeur of God. And that's what's beautiful about him and all facets of his character and his power and so forth. But it has its time. God is timeless. But in our time, these things come along and they are beautiful in its time. You get a brand new tree and it's beautiful in its time. But you just cut the other one that you liked down and made way for this one. It's beautiful in its time. And there's a time when that goes and I can replace that with something else beautiful. But at the end, I've been planting and cutting down trees all my life. Then I go to die. That's the picture that we're looking at here. So he also says something else, doesn't he? What does he say? What has he placed in their heart? In our hearts that we're exercised by these things? What does he say in addition to beautiful in its own time? He has set eternity in their heart. That's the people that realize there's no profit under heaven. It's a travail to be exercised therewith. And dealing with this fact, what has he set eternity in his heart? So we're made in the image of God. What could you infer from that? They say it's a necessary inference, but inference that you're thinking, what do you mean set eternity in their heart? Do we have any concept of eternity? How do you describe eternity? Well, from here to the sun is so many miles, and when you've done this 1 trillion times, eternity has just begun. There's no end to it. And there's no beginning. It's hard to wrap your head around that. But we try different ways to say it is forever. It is forever. And we're able to grasp in a way that it doesn't end. And now notice in 1 Peter 1 our inheritance is described for us in terms that we understand, but he didn't tell you what it is. He said it's not defiled. He didn't tell me what it is. It doesn't fade away. It's that which is pure, and it is clean, and all of those things. And we don't know it in terms of what it's not. But I didn't know what it is. It's not those things. It's not that. But how glorious that be, I don't understand it. But I understand the facts about that. It's something I don't want to miss. You don't want to miss. And he tells us pictures of hell that says you want to miss that one. It's better to pluck your eye out than to have your full body cast into hell. And that's a picture. You don't want to go there. But in these terms, eternity, this idea of forever, we can grasp that. Does your dog grasp that? Does your cat grasp that? Animals don't do that. They as sheep are led silently to the slaughter, sometimes they don't realize what's getting ready to happen. They recognize danger, and those senses there. But to have this sense of eternity, that's man trying to grasp the reality that God has set in their hearts. And all of us can grab hold of that. It's forever. And what's hard, he never, God is eternal. He never did begin. And he'll never end. He says that about himself. Well, what does that say about our existence? We might not grasp, something's always been. But what do we know about our existence? What do we know about the universe that we're looking at? We're in this bubble, this earth, the atmosphere. When did did it have a beginning? The Bible starts in the beginning. Get a hold of that, creatures, man. The animal's not going to understand that. You will. You had a beginning. And when you realize, hey, there is another reality outside of this universe, outside of all of the planets and the expanding universe, there's something beyond that, and it's God, and he has always been. And you deny that? That's foolish. It's foolish to say there is no God. But we don't understand something not having a beginning because that's been all of our experience. So what God says, I'll just give you that. And when he looks at eternal, and of course in the beginning there was the Word. The Word was already there in the beginning. He became flesh. Jesus came into our time, our body, death, our experience, for the purpose of sacrificing himself for the holy God's demands. God's holy. He can't overlook sin. Yet he paid that penalty. And so what do? We get connected with his death through our baptism, and we're going to now live lives of holiness unto God because we know he's holy. Because we got eternity set in our heart, we know we will have an existence without end, and it will be a glorified existence. There'll be no more pain. There'll be no sorrow. There'll be no death. There'll be no sickness. And we can know that, and we can realize that's eternity, and I'm going to be able to be ushered in to a timeless zone. Not the twilight zone, the timeless zone, where time is not that. And so when I've been there 10,000 years, just begun, the grace of God. And we're thankful for that, and we will be that way. So what that experience will be like, we've never experienced eternity like that. But he sets it in our heart. He tells us that. And I think we need to reflect upon it and have to leave it where we can't grasp anymore. Yes, Bill. Yes. That's right. And he'll judge us. And it's according to our works, isn't it? He sees us in this life, and he's writing to Christians. We're going to judge you. We see it in 2 Corinthians 5:10. That's different from Romans 2, but he's coming in judgment, and he'll judge our secrets of our heart and so forth. That's true. Your thoughts? Yes, sir. That's right. That makes no sense whatsoever. And your sense connects us with God's revealed word sense, doesn't it? And that's what we can, but you're trying to deal with those who go against that, but you can reason correctly from that, and there's no flaw in what you're saying. That's good. Any other thoughts? Eternity. Well, though eternity is in our hearts, we ask this question, what can man not find out? So we're limited. So while eternity is in our heart, what can man not find out? He speaks about here. So that man cannot find out what? The work that God has done from the beginning even to the end. We're just in our time and in our space, knowing that eternity exists, and we look forward to that future. From the New Testament, we can understand what that will be like. But from the beginning to the end, we can't figure out the way things are going to go. Now, he's already told us that in time, in our experience of life, it may get a little monotonous, because what has been will be again. And everything happens. The wind currents, the rain doesn't fill up the rivers don't fill up the seas, and it just kind of continues over and over again. And as we'll see here, is that things that are happening now have happened before, and we'll talk about that. But there's a sense that we don't know what his plans from the beginning to the end, but from the revelation we know what's important. our salvation and so forth. But man can't figure that out. It kind of takes trips that God's using his providential oversight to bring it to a certain point, but where does it end? We don't know that. And that's with God. And that's why do we pray? Why do I ask for wisdom when God has given me wisdom to read? Why do we ask for a fruitful season when we know the laws of nature that brings the fruit? But his providence makes it he can answer that prayer, can he? He can bring things in a profitable way to be about and answer your prayer. And providentially, he can do it. Now, we're depending upon that because it's out of my control, Lord. Right now, it doesn't look too good for me. I need the wisdom to know how to take care of this situation. Give me the wisdom to know what's best for this situation and what I can do. And but God, I want this to be done, and pray for that. Pray for salvation of my loved ones who are not in a saved relationship. And God, show me the way, what I can do, but I pray things will occur that they will bring about your salvation. Well, I know what it takes for salvation. I know when people fall away, what they need to do. But he can make things happen providentially. He has control over everything to help answer that prayer. And sometimes when he's not answering the way we want to, we continue to ask, and we continue to implore that, and shows our interest. But that's living before a God who doesn't have to do miracles to act. He can act within the laws that he's set in place and bring about situations that may facilitate what you're praying for. And we want to depend upon that and do what we can do as well. So he begins this discussion here about the work of God and so forth. And we'll talk more about that. Any comments on question number 4? All right. Question number 5. There's nothing better to do than to do what as man lives his life upon the earth. We're just kind of coming down and answering questions from the text. Yes. I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and then to do something else and to do good. The labor is true, but right now he said do good. Rejoicing in life and being a benefit to others. Pretty good way to live life. He says do good in this text, in this passage. And that's another one I passed over. Well, enjoy the fruit of your labor. You rejoice, and it's to enjoy good. That's a quality in itself. That doesn't mean you're farming. It means that you're doing good, and you do that as long as you live. And that becomes important. Now, he adds to that, but I think can you think of a better life to live? Does that fit with the Christian's life? That we're servants one to another? We're bondservants? We're slaves? In a sense that, what is your well-being? I'm to love my brother as myself, or love even my enemy. What's their well-being? What can I do that gets you out of bitterness? It gets you out of hatred. It gets you out of ulcers. What good can I do for them? I will pray for my enemy that they'll see the light. I'll pray for their enemy, they'll quit hurting me. I can talk to God about my pains and my sorrows and my depression and all those things. I can do that. Or that depresses us. But there's a thing of just doing good. What did Jesus go about doing? He went about doing good. Peter will say that in his sermon. He healed people. He miraculously healed them. We can't do that, but we can try to help people in their bad health and their times that they're going through, and pray for God, providential care to give us a good answer. He's answered my prayers along those lines in my life for others, and but just going about doing good, and that is a pretty generic term, isn't it? And but it is an adjective that describes that which is beautiful in its being and beneficial in its effect. Because it's beneficial in its effect, well, did I do evil so good could happen? No. It's good in its being. But it's beneficial in its effect. When you've got something good in its character, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Oh, the end justifies the means, doesn't it? No, he doesn't. Don't stay in sin so grace can come up. That's good. I'll just keep sinning. No, don't think that way. God forbid, Paul says. So the end doesn't justify the means, but what's good is the fact that here is the character that is good in the sight of God, and we know when we study the scriptures, as we grow to perfection, we know good and evil. It is saying we know the contrast between good and evil. We'll know that, but we know good and we know evil. And we want to do good. So we're taking the scriptures, we see the character of what's good. It's not an enabler. If a man will not work, neither let him eat. Well, what good is that? Well, he needs to learn that lesson. And there's a sense of just doing good. And good can be a lot of things to a lot of people. He's a good man. Well, he doesn't run around with his wife. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. Doesn't curse. Okay. It's pretty good. But we got to find out what God is called good. And realize that Cornelius was a good man, but he wasn't saved. So he just said, I'll just go about doing good. I'll be good and I'll do good. Well, we've got to come to Christ for salvation. So all those factors are there, but in general, it's just, that's a pretty good way to live your life. And that's how we should do that. Now, let's pick up. What is the gift of God which we should make sure we receive? We want the gift from God. And what does he say that is, that we'll receive? There's the good of our labor. That's what Norris is talking about as well. Verse 13. Also that every man should eat and drink. So here's the eat what? Well, I labored and I planted for the grain. It came. What did you make out of it? Bread and drink. There's the vineyard. We're drinking the grape juice, the wine, and enjoy good in all his labor. It tastes good. It satisfies the thirst, or even water and so forth. Enjoy good in all of his labor. This is what? It is the gift of God. And it is a present from God that we need to receive. That's pretty simple, but it is profound as you apply it in your life. That here you work hard, you get your education, you get able to pay your bills now and have things saved up, and you enjoy your work and all those things, and you're in that rat race sometime. And we just never sit back to enjoy the good things from it. That was a good meal. That's the best tasting grapes I've ever had. Whatever, enjoy the moment that you enjoy. You got to put it in a moment. You got to start doing that, otherwise we'll never do that. David, go ahead.
It goes against the idea. Some people seem to think that to live a godly life, we almost have to practice asceticism. In other words, deny ourselves. That verse right there strikes a blow at that idea.
That's right. And Timothy talks about our riches. He's given us all things to enjoy. And that's a part of life as well. I think and I'm just talking about this audience, I think we know that. We know that. We've learned that. And I hope that's been a blessing to your life. Yes.
I'm also interested in the phrase, verse 13, enjoy good in all his labor. So the first part of that clause is you eat and drink and you enjoy profit. But it also seems, and I just really briefly went into commentary, so I don't really know the Hebrew of that phrase, but enjoying good in all his labor, especially in the context of doing good, moral good.
Yeah.
An invitation to enjoy the process of doing good as well.
Yeah. That's right. And I'm thinking to myself, God expects me to be doing that, but sometimes most sad people you come across, preachers, things happen. And we're doing good. We're supposed to be saving people's souls and helping them get to heaven. Well, we need to sit back and enjoy that. And sometimes that doesn't happen. But all of our labor, because we've done good. And we know when we've stood for truth or when we've helped other people, we know that, and there's a satisfaction from that. And to fill our lives with that, I think, leads to a good and happy life. Good and happy for me, and a blessing to God, because we appreciate what God has done for us in Christ and so forth. So the Christian life should be happy. And what does Paul tell us? Rejoice always. Again, I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. He didn't say rejoice because you're going frantically 5 different types of places trying to help somebody. But I need to rejoice and sit back and rejoice in the Lord, because look what can be accomplished. It is. I'm getting beaten with 40 stripes. Rejoice in the Lord. Well, you can rejoice because I'm taking it for a cause, but you don't rejoice because I'm going to be bleeding for a while and hurting and healing. And that you enjoy that, but it's in the Lord. It's in connection with His lordship that becomes important. So remember, it's a gift from God that you enjoy the fruits of your labor as you go about doing good to others and living the life of how we should live under this sun, where most people don't ever realize what is the profit of all of my labor. There is, and he tells us that. What understanding should cause man to fear God? We get a gift from God, all of a sudden fear God. He takes us in another direction, and we want to go with Him. We're studying our Bibles. We want to go with Him on that. So where does He take us? Okay. Yeah, and I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be done forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God hath done it, that man should fear Him. He's done it. You can't change it. God's in control. And so, when's one of those moments? It's when you die. You can't keep the spirit when it comes to time for God to take us in death. And we pray for merciful death. We pray for things to be happy for the family to leave behind. All those thoughts come to our mind, but we don't have controls. We'll see in 8th chapter over the day of our death. Thank you. And God's involved with that. And therefore we should reverence Him. I got you. We should reverence Him. The fear of God. That becomes important when we realize, because what He's made straight, you can't make crooked. What He's made crooked, you can't make straight. And therefore, we're living in that context of God. Why is the following a true observation? History repeats itself. Do we have a confirmation from Solomon, from God in this passage, that history repeats itself? Well, there's nothing new under the sun. But what about verse 15? That which hath been long ago, and that which is to be, hath long ago been. History repeats itself. What has been long ago, and that which is to be, past, future, hath long ago been. And God seeketh again that which is passed away. He brings it into our experience. God does that. And we're just, history repeats itself. I can't believe this is happening. It may be a different form. It may come a different way, but it's going to repeat itself, and that's why we need to learn history. We can see what people, they've been different contexts, a different time, different situations they're in, but that idea of repeating itself will take place. Here's people that get power. They want power over nations, and they will go and conquer other nations. Alexander the Great, Hitler. A lot of time between those two. The war to end all wars. We got World War II. Got the Korean War. We got all sorts of wars. There'll be rumors of wars, Jesus said. But it didn't end all wars. Because man, greed, power, money, wealth, all those things drive men to murder, to cheat, steal, and in the power to have war. And God brings it around for us to experience. And what's the whole purpose of that? Did you get better in the 21st century than they were in the 19th century, 18th century? Humanity, you're the answer for improvement because you don't believe in God. You're a humanist. Have you improved things? The world poverty, how'd that go in 67? Well, 2024, and we still haven't world poverty. War on drugs, just say no. How'd that work? And character building is a key of how we can make changes. And we build ourselves in the character of God, teaching a new generation accountability and what holy living is about and reality that we have. But we've got a culture that says you don't even have to be male or female anymore. It's whatever you want to be. And it's confused. It's upside down. And the only way to remedy that is people come back to reality. Maybe they're forced to reality. Maybe people rise up to stop these things. But there's evil making progress in our country. Just Texas Children's Hospital. Man is being indicted, brought about by the forces, and because he was a whistleblower of just having these surgeries on teenage girls and boys. He said that was still being done after Abbott and the legislature were going to say it's illegal. They were still doing it, and he was a doctor in training. And he's a whistleblower. He's supposed to be protected. He's been indicted by the DOJ over document problems. Just pick the man, I'll find the crime. That's history repeating itself. It's happened over Russia. It's happening with certain people today. And people are coming to be aware of that. We became aware of what was happening in Texas Children's Hospital, mutilating teenage girls and boys. And what happened? We stopped it. And they went underground with it. And now that's being exposed. God's in control. And we realize that's harming children. It's causing trouble. And there's some doctors standing up and paying the price for that. Individuals. Happening. So it's happening in our country. And it's the greatest country, freedom and so forth, but we have the freedom to speak. And it's a time to speak out sometime. And let it be known, and I appreciate the man that he did. But history will keep on repeating itself.
God, knowing the nature of man, gave us the Old Testament, trying to warn us what departing from the faith will do.
That's right.
It happens over and over. But that was our lesson that we should learn. That departing from the faith is going to be condemnation.
That's right. Okay, we'll stop there. We'll pick up next time, Lord willing. What should comfort us when we see injustice in the places justice should be, which we can see a lot of times. And I appreciate your comments and being here this morning.